Okay, guys, this is Moshe in Israel. I live in the Galilee, been here for many years. I'm going to do an update for you on the Gaza-Israel war. I'm not going to do any long live streams today because I'm rather well occupied with covering the war. There'll probably be a number of live streams intermittently during the day, so you may want to make sure you're subscribed and click the notification bell so you get notified of such things. So where we're at now is there was 50 hostages we estimated held at a kibbutz in the south of Israel by the Hamas special force terrorists that invaded Israel, and um, they have been successfully rescued, and the terrorists have been neutralized. There was another location in the south where they were also holding hostages in a building or a house, and they too, the hostages were saved and they were neutralized. So this is a substantially fantastic feat that our special forces did. When you watch Hollywood and Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger do this on the big screen, yeah, that's one thing. But try doing it in real life against special forces guys that are basically jihadist terrorists that would think nothing of shooting the hostages as soon as the attack happened. So they're not telling us how it was done, but I imagine there was some technical advantages that they had. I don't know what they were, but just kicking the doors in and shooting a whole bunch of terrorists before they hurt the victims with their machine guns is rather remarkable. I'm not saying it wasn't done. I'm saying it was done as they're reporting it, but it was just a fantastically superb job they did. Reservists are flying in from around the world now. Most flights in the Ben Gurion airport have been canceled. They're flying them into Cyprus, and then we're running shuttle flights from Cyprus into Israel around, just constantly. The trains and buses are being used to transport soldiers. So we have an army assembled in Gaza, tanks and all. And as soon as we finish controlling the south, there's still a few pockets of Hamas terrorists operating. As soon as that's finished, the invasion of Gaza should begin, and that could be today, tonight, tomorrow. I don't think it'll take more than tonight or tomorrow. The rocket fire has been very light. Israel hit 246 targets. We destroyed the Hamas headquarters building 14 stories high without damaging the building a few feet away from it. And I'm sure that the the Hamas leaders were not in the building. They typically hide in tunnels while this bombing takes place. And we are starting to use bunker bombs against some of these tunnels. I don't know how effective that's been. They still have hostages. We don't know how many hostages they, in fact, have. Let me see who's contacting me for a second here. Um, we don't know how many hostages they have. We were told by one of our generals that a lot of these hostages are fake. They're basically Hamas guys or Gaza people dressing up like hostages. So, but they do have some hostages, and there are a lot of missing people. So we don't know how many. They're saying they have 100. We really don't know. Will they be rescued? I don't know. Gaza or Hamas may try to push them out into another country, but I don't think they could get into any other countries except Egypt. They have tunnels, or they used to, into Egypt. They may still be there, they may not. And I don't know if Egypt would let them do this. I would say I highly, highly doubt Egypt would ever let them do a move like this with civilian hostages. So I don't think moving the hostages to another country is a viable option. They don't have an airport. Our Navy has them blocked off, so they're not going to be able to go by boat. So I really don't think that's going to happen. There's a lot of concern in Israel because there's sensors on the Gaza border and cameras, and nobody reacted to them knocking the fences down with bulldozers and coming in. And the aircraft took several hours to start bombing Gaza to stop the massive barrage of missiles, which hit 5,000. So people are wondering why we were so relaxed or what's going on. And, there's going to be big inquiries about this. Now, the next thing is we shut off their electricity in Gaza. They're dependent on us for electricity. So they're not that stupid where they didn't imagine we would shut the electricity off, but we did. And we're stopping the flow of goods in and out of Gaza, and they're not going to be coming into Israel and working. Probably never again, or for a long time not. So the ground operation is likely to cause Lebanon to enter into the war, Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hezbollah in Syria. I expect this will happen. Hezbollah is on full war readiness in Syria. They have troops in Syria and in Lebanon. And our army is a very major contingent of our army is up by Lebanon. There's a scripture that says, Lebanon, open your doors, let the cedars of Lebanon burn. There's another scripture that says they shall swoop down on the shoulders of the Philistines on the west, which is Gaza. And it looks like that's about to happen any hour. When they go in, they're going to completely destroy Hamas. Okay? And that means there's not going to be a Hamas after they go in. Okay? Then they're going to be non-existent. They're going to destroy all their offices, all their ammo, all their rockets, all their factories to make weapons, their stockpiles, their food, their uniforms, their records, everything. I mean, then Hamas is going to fight avidly against Israel. They're not going to play games. They're going to fight hard, and they're going to lose. They have no air force. They have no navy. The attack will come with Apache helicopter gunships. It'll be jets. It'll be tanks, mobile artillery, armored personnel carriers, and lots of special forces. Israel has 42 different special forces, and they're all real. They're all heavily trained like recon Marines and Navy SEALs. And we have that many of them, and they specialize in different things. Some will be for the water, some will be for cities, some are for mountains, some are for snow. They're all different kinds of special forces, okay? And they'll be mobilized to a good extent. And it'll take days, and Gaza will be a mess. And troop losses will be minimal for Israel because of the way we fight. Troop losses for Hamas will be massive because of their jihadist mindset. The Muslim world is going to scream bloody murder, and they're going to try to get people to ignore the fact that they took babies and children, or young children, maybe not babies, and women and elderly and so forth as hostages. So they broke into our country, grabbed them, and ran back to Gaza with them. You got to imagine that. Imagine if the cartels in Mexico ran into Texas and Arizona and went into people's houses and burned their houses until they came running out and then took them captive and brought them back into Mexico. What Biden would do, what the Congress would do, they'd go absolutely nuts. The generals would go crazy. I mean, they would, so you get the mindset. Now, Biden said he'll give Israel anything they want. Basically, he said, just ask, and then he turned around and gave $8 billion of aid. This is probably military equipment that was valued at the cost, Now, will America come in and fight with Israel? I think so. Biden already, now, Netanyahu announced what Biden said, And Biden said it publicly, and then the media questioned him, and then Biden turns around and says, "Look, I thought it made it perfectly clear. We'll give them anything they need." So Biden's saying, anything means anything. So will they send soldiers into Israel and aircraft and stuff like that? I don't know. Very likely. Will they move naval warships off the coast of the Mediterranean? Hold on a minute. I got to deal with this. I'm sorry. That's something. People that are staying in our guest house, friends, and they're asking me about putting water in the bomb shelter. They're getting nervous. So, I told them where to find some bottles of water. Okay, moving forward. Because of Jeremiah 50:51, and we see America do not nice things to Israel in those two chapters, I think we're going to see. Well, we see the daughter of Babylon do not nice things, and you know what that means. So I think they will send soldiers here. How it's going to finally work out, I don't know. Now you got to remember, we know more than the governments do, because of Bible prophecy. Now, they know what's going to happen in the next 24, 48, 72 hours. Yeah, sure. But they don't know the big picture. We do. If they get very investigative about why there was such a delay in the bombing to not stop those thousands of missiles coming in from Gaza, it could bring a lot of serious ramifications on the existing government. If they were lackadaisical or whatever, this is serious, but nobody's investigating right now. I cover this in more detail on my Telegram channel. If you want access to my Telegram channel, send me an email. My email's in the lowest line down in the description box. It's Israel Giving with the number 7 at gmail.com. Israel Giving, one word with the digit 7 at gmail.com. And I'll send you access to Telegram. You need to download the app, Telegram Messenger. So I do the updates on Telegram constantly. I must have done 200-300 updates yesterday, new postings. Lots of video, lots of pictures. Okay, so this is, Gaza saying this is just the first phase. When they talk like that, they usually mean it. They're holding themselves out as a sacrificial animal to get the other countries involved in attacking Israel. Now, Israel, since is going to a unity government, so Benny Gantz is hooking in with Netanyahu, and I think they're going to push the Ben Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich out of the government. And Benny Gantz has enough votes to offset what they're going to lose, what Netanyahu will lose from Ben Gvir and Smotrich, because Smotrich are extreme right-wingers, and they're not going to want any compromise and stuff like that. They are, the Israeli government is definitely intending to make Hamas non-existent in Gaza. And that is something they're not negotiating on. Netanyahu's dead bent on that. The way they're killing the terrorists inside Israel makes me believe that they definitely, what Netanyahu's saying is what Netanyahu definitely intends to do, and probably what will happen. They shall swoop down on the shoulders of the Philistines, and there you have it. We're in the year of recompenses. As I told you, it started around August 1st this year. It's a 12-month, 360-day year, and it also is the same year as the year of redemption, but we're starting with the recompenses. That goes first. All right. So is this leading to the so-called Psalm 83 war, which is Zechariah 12? Yes, it is. And in Zechariah 12, you see the two witnesses burning up the enemies on the right hand and the left hand. They're called the governors, but the word would better be judges, translated as judges, and judges are prophets, and we only have two prophets on the way. And those are your two witnesses, which is Elijah and Apostle John, literally. And I've covered that in my videos with all the scriptures with the translation errors corrected from the English. And you could go to my YouTube channel and go to the live section. That's where my videos are. They're not in videos. And you can see the you can watch all these videos about the Bible prophecy, fairly recent. The ones in the last 3 weeks are probably the best ones to go after. So there's a lull in the storm right now. Our aircraft has probably stopped the vast majority of the missiles and rockets from coming in. We just took a mortar attack from Lebanon in the last 20 or 30 minutes, and we don't know what that's about. It could be some wise guy up there got his hands on a mortar and snuck around, set the mortar up, fired one mortar shell, and then ran away. And it could be all it is, and probably that's all it was. But it triggered a red alert. If Lebanon gets into the fight, they're not going to charge by land our army. That would be suicide. Probably in 1 or 2 hours, 70% of them would be dead and the rest would retreat. I doubt they would try that. They have no air support. You know, they may try launching their missiles and rockets, of which they have a lot of, onto our army positions by the border, but that would leave the army three choices, the Israeli army. One is sit there and take the rockets and missiles, which is a bad idea. Two is fall back, but they'd probably have to fall back 10 miles minimally. And that is disastrous because then they'll push in from Lebanon and occupy those 10 miles. And then they've created a buffer zone. So the chances are what the military would do, since there's heavy armor there, is push into Lebanon, just invade. And I don't know if Hezbollah would rain missiles and rockets down on their own geography. I doubt it. They could, but I don't know if they will. It depends. My guess is probably 80% chance they would not. And if they did, it wouldn't be that effective because we're going to be going in with tanks, mobile artillery, armored personnel carrier, and helicopters and jets and things like that, and we'll just push in. Now, the world has never seen Israel use their surface missiles, of which we have many, many thousands, I expect. And they're highly effective. And we haven't used them because we don't need them, and we haven't needed them, and we don't want people to know how they work. But what you see, if Lebanon opens up with a missile fire and they start hitting Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, city Haifa, that isn't going to accomplish a military objective. And our airplanes are flying over Lebanon. I'm in the north and I'm hearing planes all morning. And they're flying over Lebanon to let Lebanon know, Hezbollah know, if they start shooting missiles and rockets, it's just going to be seconds, maybe 30 seconds, till the airplanes strike the missile launch site with bombs and rockets. So they need to know that the price they pay is not only going to be heavy, it's going to be immediate. The real answer would be for Israel to push into Lebanon and create a border, which we did in 2006. We took 25 miles and occupied it and said that's our buffer zone. Now, today, their missiles and rockets, some of them, not many of them, can go further. So we might want to go 30 or 40 miles in and eradicate everything inside there and so forth, and then occupy it. Now, if we're occupying Gaza, which we'll have to do from the ground division, we're occupying Lebanon, well, our military is starting to get stretched thin. Now, Israel for many decades has been preparing for multi-front wars, and we know exactly how to do it. Now, we have Hezbollah, which is Lebanon, basically in Syria, and they may try to attack us from Syria, but the amount of resources they have is minimalistic, and we don't expect to see a great deal of threat coming from them. Now, Iran is also in Syria, but we bombed much of their missiles that they've transported into Syria. Now, Russia is in Syria too, but in a minimalistic fashion, and I don't think we're going to see Russia do much of anything. I don't think they can. And if they try it, if there's rockets coming from Syria, and they try to use air defense systems to stop us from attacking the source of the rockets, well, Israel will just immediately attack these Russian installations without hesitation. They're not going to let, Israel's not going to let their cities and their people get blown up over some political junk, okay? They'll just attack Russia. And what's Russia going to do? Open up another war with Israel? Come on, chances of that are highly unlikely. Russia will just shrug their shoulders. Now, Ukraine offered to come fight in Israel for us, which is interesting. So if Russia did start to fight against us here, I think you'd have to shoot Ukrainian soldiers to stop them from coming here to kill Russians, you know. Now, the Ukrainian soldiers, if they wanted to, could just go into Syria and kill Russians, and we certainly have no right to stop that. And if we gave them ammunition and food and water and medical coverage and so forth, gee, it's humanitarian, you know. So, but I'm not expecting much from Russia right now, okay? Now, Egypt has softly threatened us not to invade Gaza, but I don't think it's serious. Biden has told Hezbollah that if they fight against Israel, there's going to be consequences. So I believe he intends to help us with Lebanon, militaristically, not with money, but with actual aircraft and soldiers. The Americans have a very strong vested interest in maintaining Israel in the Middle East because we keep much of the Middle East at bay. And if there was no Israel, then the oil prices and the supply of oil going to Europe and North America would be, and South America probably, would be severely diminished. And it would cause a tremendous economic chaos with hyperinflation. I mean, you're talking, we're paying $8 a gallon for diesel in Israel, and Europe's paying more. They're paying 9, 10, 11. You would see oil prices in Europe go from, let's just conservatively say, $8, $9 to $16, $20 a gallon. The economy would fall apart. And in America, it wouldn't go that high, but it would probably get up to $6, $7, $8. It would be disaster. People would not be able to drive to work. Truck delivery prices would soar. Airfares would go through the roof. And, you know, merchant naval vessels, you know, container ships, tankers, grain ships, prices would soar. The Panama Canal is all screwed up now. So the wait is very long, and it'll be like that for many months. And then they would have to circle around South America, burning even more fuel. So the economies of many countries in the world would be in sheer chaos. And then Iran would probably close the Persian Gulf to unfriendly countries, and they would try to close the Red Sea. And the Muslim world would have the control over the Middle East oil, and it would be a disaster for the other countries. And I don't think Biden wants to see that happen. So I expect that the United States has begun soft preparations for such an event. which would mean the military generals at the Pentagon are cooking up contingency plans and deciding what troops and what equipment would be mobilized and how long it would take. I think it would take several days to get any sort of a substantial force here. While there are American troops in Syria, I don't think there's that many, and I don't think they would abandon their positions. So they'd have to fly troops in, which wouldn't take that long. They have troops in Europe, and they can fly them in. I mean, they could land in Israel safely, and we've got bases we could house them on and put them on and stuff like that. So it would probably take 3 days for them to be mobilized. Now they can start moving missile cruisers and destroyers over to the Mediterranean that could rain missiles down on Lebanon as well, without Lebanon really being able to do anything to the ships. Submarines also can launch missiles, and aircraft can drop bombs. Lebanon has no air defenses, so it's not a real challenge to knock out Lebanon. I think we'll see this if Lebanon attacks, because the United States is going to want to stop it before Jordan gets in the fracas, and Iran and Iraq start moving troops into Syria, and Egypt gets into the fracas, and there you go. Now, Turkey's opposing all of this stuff. He's told Hamas to cut it out publicly. So it does not appear that Turkey is going to enter into this at this point in time. If Russia gets into it on behalf of Hezbollah, Turkey might counter Russia. They don't get along too well these days. So red alerts have really stopped by about 90% or more. I think we've shut down their missile launch capability extremely well. There's not much left of it, of anything. And the next step is going to be an invasion into Gaza, and then we're going to occupy. And Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad and those other groups are not going to be in existence. They'll be a memory only. But Hamas didn't engage on this thing and keep saying it's phase one like we planned. When they talk like that, they usually mean it. Not that what they think is going to happen is going to come true, but they're telling you that there are more phases of the plan. And the two most obvious ones are Lebanon and Syria, Hezbollah in both countries. Now, when we read the scriptures about they shall swoop down on the shoulders of the Philistines, and Lebanon open up your doors, the cedars of Lebanon shall burn, right in the same passage it talks about Ammon, Edom, and Moab, which is Jordan. So my eyes are watching Jordan. When you see Zechariah 12, it says they surround Judah and Jerusalem, and that means it's the West Bank. That's the only thing that surrounds it, and Jordan has full access to the West Bank. So they may start letting terrorist states into the West Bank. Now, the Taliban said if the other Arab countries let us traverse their territory, we'll come in and finish off Jerusalem. So the Taliban may get permission to mobilize an army and come in to Jordan and then the West Bank. The fighting in the West Bank would look very much like what happened in South. It would be a disaster. Okay? The cries for the Arabs in Israel to rise up against the Israelis has been a massive failure. We've seen a few sporadic events where one guy or someone decides he's going to go jihad, and that's it. So that's not working. A lot of the Arabs that are Israeli citizens, which is 1.6 million, are very content to live here because of the freedom and the standard of living and the economy. So they're not going to be so quick. They don't see a motive. What's their reason? They don't want to go live under Sharia law with totalitarian governments. So they're highly likely not going to do anything, and they haven't so far. What? So the next thing we're going to see is the ground invasion of Gaza, which could begin this morning, this afternoon, or I'd say by tomorrow anyway. And hundreds of thousands of Israeli reservist soldiers are mobilized. They're flocking into the country from abroad, and they're being positioned. Naftali Bennett, a former prime minister of Israel for a brief period of time, has been activated in the reserves. He's in a special forces unit, and we saw pictures of him at the base with the other soldiers putting his gear together, getting ready to go. That's interesting. Gallant was a former minister of defense, and for many years he was the top general in Israel over the military, and he's going to now be in the coalition. Benny Gantz, I'm talking about, right? Will be in the coalition with Netanyahu, so he's going to probably strongly get involved in the military actions, and he's probably better than Gallant. Gallant's not much of a winner. And the protests are not going to be taking place during this, which is something Netanyahu's probably happy about. There you have it. So we're basically waiting for the other shoe to drop. Believe me, Israel did not mobilize a whole army up at the Lebanese border. Not their entire army, but they formed an army up there. It's not like they sent 2,000 or 3,000 guys up there. It's a big deal. If they didn't have good intel, that this is highly likely to happen. So I think that we're waiting for the other shoe or shoes to drop, and all roads right now are leading to the Psalm 83 war, which is contained in Zechariah 12, and it is not Gog and Magog. When you read Gog and Magog, right away you read Israel is living at peace and safety without bars and windows. Does that sound like Israel today? Of course not. It says they have cattle, gold, silver, riches. Does that sound like Israel today? No. You got 2.5 million people living at the poverty line here. That's not Israel today. This is down the road. So Zechariah 12 is Israel today. And when you see Zechariah 12 unfold, the two witnesses are there in control. And the democracy government of Israel is absent from Zechariah 12. So you're here. I mean, this is it. Now, the other thing that's worthy of note is the attack happened on a rabbinical Jewish holiday called Simchat Torah. Its biblical name is the last day. The rabbis do not follow a correct biblical calendar. You know, the correct biblical calendar has you spot the new moon every month, and that's the beginning of the month. They don't do it that way. They do it like a farmer's almanac. You could look up Yom Kippur 2027 and they'll tell you the day that it happens, and that's not the correct calendar. Their years are off, everything is off, okay? But on their calendar, this is what the people of Israel follow, 98% of them probably, okay? 99%. This was the Feast of Tabernacles that started on the 29th of September, and it was over on the 6th, and then on the 7th, which started the night, after Friday sundown. So in other words, the attack happened on Simchat Torah, which is the last day of the Feast of Tabernacles, to them. And that's when this happened. And that's got to have prophetic significance. It wasn't the correct feast day, but that's how they observed it, incorrectly. Now, they teach that when you live in Israel, you only observe the holiday for 7 days, but if you live as a Jew outside of Israel, you observe the last day. And they go to the synagogue on Simchat Torah, the last day, and they read the Torah all night long. And that's when the attack happened. And most people don't know this. Now, the significance of the last day is going to get a lot of the church people mad now. Because when you read John 6, verses 39, John 6, 40, John 6, 44, and John 6:54, it talks about the last day. And this is when Yeshua 4 times says that all that the Father gave him, meaning all the believers, he's going to raise up at the last day. Now, the last day is prophetically significant, referencing the Feast of Tabernacles. The millennium is the seventh day, the day of rest, Shabbat. Okay? And that's the analogy here that Yeshua is making. And then the eighth day, in Revelation 20, it says Satan is released when the 1,000 years is expired. And he gathers the people like the sand of the sea, the nations around Jerusalem, the New Jerusalem, and Father God Jehovah sends fire down from heaven, burns the whole place up. And that's why we meet him in the air and go up on the clouds to heaven. And that happens on the last day. There is no left behind rapture. If there is, Yeshua didn't know about it, because 4 times, John 6:39, 40, 44, and 54, read it for your own sake, read it. He says all that the Father gave him, all the believers, he's going to raise up on the same day, the last day. Now, that was the day that we had this big Hamas attack, the rabbi's version of it, and that's all the people of Israel would understand. Okay? So to them, it happened on the last day, which they also call Simchat Torah. And that, if you think that has no biblical significance, I'm not going to argue with you. You know, I think it does. Okay? Because that's the only thing they would understand. You know, when you read Jeremiah, he talks about, because they didn't have track of the calendar anymore because they were out of Israel for 70 years and they weren't spotting the new moon. So they were, saying things like in the 25th year of this king or in the second year of Darius and stuff like that. That's how the prophet was writing down the year, So that's all the Israelites knew that then, and back then, and that's how the prophecies began. You can read them. And other prophets were acting the same way too, when they're out of Israel. So Jeremiah was in Babylon, as was Daniel and Zechariah, I believe was Zechariah there? I don't know. I don't remember. No, I think he was there, and then he came to Israel. When the book of Zechariah was written, Israel was back from Babylon approximately 16, 17, 18 years, something like that. All right, so anyway, you should definitely make yourself familiar with Zechariah 12, and you should make yourself familiar with, as it flows into Zechariah 13 also, and you should make yourself familiar with Zechariah chapter 4, especially the last verse, which explains the two witnesses to you, and read that with Revelation 11. But this is your Psalm 83 forming, not Gog and Magog. And Psalm 83 is Zechariah 12, and you should read Jeremiah 30, which is extremely enlightening, and that deals with the birth pangs. And it says, great is Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. That's not Gog and Magog. That's Zechariah 12. And in Jeremiah 30, verse 11, it says, all the nations that God scattered the Jews into shall be destroyed. Now, that couldn't have been in the past, because if it was 600 years ago or something like that, well, the Israelites were still being scattered into the nations. They're not all back yet, okay? So when that happens, it's the time of the second Exodus, which is immediately after Zechariah 12. And it's basically now. And that's why you're seeing all this war shaping up in the Pacific and Europe, because of Jeremiah 30, verse 11. Believe it or not, it's in your Bible. If you start believing the people, the false teachers and the false prophets and the guys with the big buildings and the TV stations over your Bible, I suggest you go to the Red Cross and take a lot of swimming lessons for the lake of fire. I'm being facetious, but it's very serious. Okay, that's my update on the war. There'll be several more during the day, I'm sure. Make sure you're subscribed and click the notification bell so you get notified, and I'll keep you updated. Right now, like I said, we're waiting for the other shoe to drop. The first shoe to drop is going to be the invasion of Gaza, and then we'll see what happens from there. Okay, I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. Please pray for me, Moshe, and my wife Rivka, and pray for our peace, safety, protection, and joy. Pray for our animals and pets to be happy, healthy, and whole. Pray for the peace of Yerushalayim. Pray for better videos. And I thank those of you that are sending offerings in. Much appreciated. And I'm out.